All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. Kind of a rough week for rates. So let's just jump in to see kind of what's going on. So today we lost 41 basis points. In today's rate sheet, guys, that's rough because that's like 3/8 in rate or a quarter to 3/8 in rate. So that's a pretty big jump this morning for the negative. It's kind of it's really a technical move, and I'll show you that in a second. Do you remember last week when I said if we stay above this line right here, we'd be in good shape? We're right here and we bounced below it. And then we came down to this level right here and we bounced below it on Friday. And now we're still below it and we have a lot of room to fall. So these are the technical, all of these levels of resistance, we kind of played in the middle of them right here. And then on the backs of the European Union and their inflation numbers, it spooked the markets. And remember, I said inflation's the enemy. It looks like it's not going away anytime soon, unfortunately. I know there's a lot of hubbub about the Inflation Act, but very little of that actually has to do with inflation, believe it or not. And it's not really going to have any impact short term. So with the natural gas prices in Europe, with us going into winter, it's going to cause, I think, a little bit of pain through the end of the year. So we do have a bias on locking right now. So we're locking everything because we do have room to fall here on the technicals. And then if you look at the 10-year, this is a more important piece, which is helping drive this fall in rates. If you look, we went above this Fibonacci level on the 10-year. So we could go all the way up here on the 10-year, which is not a good sign for mortgage rates. So I think there's room to get worse this week, unfortunately. As far as what's going on in the markets this week, what to kind of expect on the economic calendar, we have a lot of moving parts. We have inflation numbers coming out. We have jobless claims coming out, personal incomes coming out. On Friday, the Jackson Hole Symposium, that's when the feds are laying out their plan. So Friday is going to be very, very, very important. We have GDP on Thursday. So it's going to be a big week. Let's just hope to God we can hold our ground. But the technicals are not looking good for rates. So if you do have people that are wondering if they should lock in, if they went on a contract this weekend, we do have a bias towards locking in right now. So the rate sheets already have this built into it. So rates are worse today. We may get back into the sixes pretty quickly here, guys. In fact, some quotes may be in the sixes already. Not fun to say. I hate saying that, but inflation continues to be a problem. So this Friday is going to be very interesting to see what the Feds say. On that note, we still have a pretty active market, very active on listings now. You guys have seen the number of listings really climb. But what are our buyers doing? Well, they are kind of sitting tight, and a lot of them want to rent. But I want to talk about the psychology of the borrower and the truth behind the rent versus buy argument. It's hard to get into the mind of our buyers right now because they really don't know what the future holds. But what we know for a fact is when you buy and you pay yourself through amortization, it's always better than renting. So I'm going to look at that. But I want to show you guys some really interesting facts on real estate. It's still the American dream, and I believe it still is an American dream more than ever. But let's look at the net worth of people. So these numbers, the top 1% have a net worth of over 10.8 million. Top two, and this is in the United States. The top 2% have a net worth of 2.5 million or more. 5% is 1 million or more net worth. Top 10% is 0.8 million, and top 50% have $500,000 in net worth. Now, 2/3 of these people, it's because of real estate. So 2/3 of the people, their net worth is brought to them by the equity positions they have in the real estate holdings that they have. That's a pretty significant number. So if you say, what are the odds of becoming a millionaire or having a high net worth? The odds are 67 or 66% higher if you own real estate. That's a good argument to have when you're dealing with buyers. Now, some people own a lot of stocks and they don't own real estate for some reason. I've seen a lot of that on social media, but for the most part, a majority of people, it's because of real estate. So that's a good thing to make sure we're telling our buyers. Now I want to go over the rent versus buy argument. So I took a very specific scenario. I pretended I was a renter and I said, okay, I want to rent in Desert Ridge right now. I use that as just I don't know why I chose that, but I just chose Desert Ridge. And I looked up, and these are some rents that are available on 4-bedroom, 2-bath homes. There's $4,300 a month, $3,000 for this one down here, which I'm not sure why it's so cheap. This one's $6,500, $3,900. So I just said, you know what? Let's look at the average of $4,350. Okay, now let's look at renting at $4,350 average versus buying right now, so I can make sense of what's going to be best for me financially. I have these reports readily available for anyone that wants me to run numbers on their individual circumstances. If you have people that are deciding on whether they want to rent versus buy, and here's what it looks like. Now, at first, the mortgage is higher. You're talking $4,900. It's higher when you buy versus rent. However, because rent does go up and you pay yourself, it looks like right here, it looks like a cash flow difference. It's more expensive to rent. But there's some secret sauce behind this. Yes, it may be upfront. Rents will go up, but you pay yourself. So of those payments, here's what it looks like after a couple of years, the net gain of buying a home. So the first year, and I'll break this down for in a second, but the first year you will have a loss if you decide to buy and then just immediately sell after 1 year, okay? Because you have real estate fees involved with selling. So the very first year you will have, if you bought a home and then immediately sold it, you would have a loss of $28,000. But after the second year, because you pay yourself, and we'll look at that more, because you pay yourself and appreciation, which I only used 3%, you continue to gain. Now, this is a 5-year model. So $136,000 gain, even though rents were lower, $136,000 gain by buying over a 5-year period. So if you're talking anyone that's long-term, that wants to grow a family, that is thinking, you know what, I think it's better for my family to rent. It's not. Short-term, very short-term, yes. But because you pay yourself, and we'll go over that in just a second here, this appreciation gain is the property appreciating over time. And then this amortization gain is what you pay yourself. And then you have to take into account the tax benefit. So when you're looking at, is it cheaper to buy versus rent, or rent versus buy, long-term, it's always better to buy versus rent in an appreciating market. And this is based on only 3% appreciation. So I want to show you what this looks like compared to the cost of waiting. So this right here, what we just looked at, is renting at a higher amount. I'm sorry, buying it was more expensive than renting, but because rents do go up over time and the mortgage stays pretty steady, except for, and this does take into account taxes going up and insurance going up. Okay, so this already takes that into account. It's better off to buy than to rent. Now, what if they just said, you know, I'm just going to put everything on hold and just wait, and then I'll buy in 1 year. Okay, so they're renting right now, and they're just going to put everything on hold and buy in 1 year. A lot of us have those customers, right? Well, what does that look like with actual numbers that we can present to our buyers to say, okay, you can wait. I'm all for that. I don't want to push you into anything, but I want to show you the numbers. Here's some numbers. This is based, and I'll break it down in just a second. This is based on waiting 6 months and then buying, waiting 1 year and then buying, or waiting 2 years and then buying. This does not take into account any rents they're paying. So they would miss out in 6 months, $15,000. And this is based on the loss of appreciation and the amortization they would pay themselves. And this is after 1 year, they would miss about $52,600 just by waiting 1 year, and 2 years, and it just gets exponentially more. And keep in mind, they're renting too, which is 100% interest. So they are really throwing away a lot of money here. I'm going to show you the full, hold on one second. Excuse my awful display of icons that was on my desktop there. But here's the actual presentation that we can give. Talks about the cash flow. It's very important to look at the cash flow, but then it takes into the difference of amortization versus appreciation. And then it talks about what your actual gains are when you buy a home versus rent. So it's, yes, your rent, $5,089 after 5 years, because rents do go up, is more than your current mortgage. And I'm taking into account your mortgage going up because taxes are going up and everything else is going up with insurance, etc. So even with it being cheaper per month to rent, because a lot of people just look at cash flow, they don't look at what their actual equity position would be in the future. This is a very good representation of how much they will make over time. So rent versus buy, guys, I have a very big group of people that are working with real estate agents that are already pre-qualified that have said, you know what, I'm going to put everything on hold and rent over the last 6 months. We all have those people. We need to show them and be the mathematicians, so to speak, on what the true cost of renting versus buying is, even if we see mediocre, like not even mediocre, really low appreciation over the next couple of years. And they're expecting between 4 and 7% is what all of the different models are showing through Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and other reports. And this is only using 3%. So again, any of these models that I'm putting together, guys, are available for you at your fingertips whenever you want them. And I can make them specific to an individual. So if you want to sit down with somebody over, that is currently renting, or their rents are coming up, meaning their lease is coming up to renew, and you want to get in front of them and say, hey, let's talk about it. I know you started a lease 8 months ago. It's coming up. Let's talk about buying versus renting, and then put this in front of them, because they are making a financial mistake for the long haul when they decide to rent instead of buy. Any questions? I'm going to stop share here and pull this back over here.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the cost of waiting, did you assume the interest rate stays the same
Yes.
as well? Okay, so
if you look,
interest rate goes up further, the cost of waiting is even higher than what you just depicted.
that is correct.
Okay.
So I assumed that we didn't have, now there's a lot of people that are scratching their heads to see, will the feds be able to control the overall inflation? That's going to be a really big factor. So if rates continue to climb, that's not a good thing. So waiting now, I think, is a more poor decision than ever, because getting in now while it's like a balanced market now, I think is smart. If rates do come down in the future, you could always refinance, but if they continue to grow, it's going to be even a more difficult scenario down the road. So we can look at that model with rates going up, and it would be even worse. So rates in the 5s and 6s is not bad historically. It is bad compared to where everyone's used to. So we just have to really look at our customers individually to see what's in their best interest, and make sure they're making the best decisions, not based on just fear, but based on actual math.
Sean, what about those people who don't have a lot of money to put down? Are there some programs for them so that they can get out of renting? Absolutely.
So there's still the grant programs. They're not the best, but we do have a 1% down program, where if you're it's our Heroes program. So if you're in the healthcare industry, or a first responder, or in education, if you're a teacher, all of those people can take advantage of our 1% down program. The MI is discounted. The mortgage insurance is discounted as well. So keep in mind, when you rent, what are the typical costs? First and last month's rent and a deposit, something like that, right? Well, if that's a $500,000 house, they're putting around anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 out of pocket just to secure the property. So if you have a $500,000 home with 1% down, that's $5,000. That's about the same as renting. And in this market, we can ask the sellers for something to help pay closing costs, or if they have it themselves, great. But there are a lot of ways to get into homes for people that are renting with very low down.
Any programs for first-time home buyers?
Yes, the grant programs are still available, like the Chenoa, the Home and 5. They are a little bit more expensive. And then the traditional 3% down program is always available, FHA 3.5%. So there's grants are available, but they're just not as good as they were 3-4 years ago. The costs of getting that money is significant in the rate. And we're not able to give as much. So it's a tough program right now, just the way we're being squeezed on our rates. But it is an option. So you do need some money. Obviously, it can be gifted from a family member. Not everyone has a daddy Warbucks at their sides in their families. We all wish we did. But for those people that do not have the money, I urge them to do everything they can to, like as Dave Ramsey says, live like nobody else so you can in future live like nobody else, right? Save up, sell something, get whatever you can to get that down payment, even if it's a minimum to get into a home, because it will pay off for the future. Are these slides available? Yes, I can. I actually have this. This is being recorded as well. So everyone's going to be able to get a copy of this. But Scott, I will send it directly to you as well. I will also send the full reports that I put together to everyone on this call with the cost of waiting and the buy versus rent. And if you want a specific one for you, if you have a customer that's, let's say they're in the 400,000 purchase price or the 1.8 million purchase, it doesn't matter. If you have a customer that you want me to run these custom numbers for, just let me know. I'm happy to do that.
I have a listing that I was thinking if we ran the numbers for, I could put out like a newsletter or a social media post, you know, showing this, why buyers should buy this house.
Yeah. I like that. So I can send me that listing or text me the address or whatever. And I still owe you that video.
You're like me on video. I'd rather die.
Well, you know, if it's goofy and funny and spur of the moment, I do great. But when I try to like do a why me, for some reason I just don't like any of those. Like, why choose Sean Woolen? It's hard to get a good video that doesn't sound like I'm being I don't know, a douchebag or something. I don't know how to explain it, but it's a lot more difficult than I thought.
Yeah, it is not feeling genuine.
Yeah, it does. It just feels like I'm trying to sell somebody, and it doesn't come natural to me, but I'll figure it out. I'll get something put together. All right, guys, it's going to be a little bit of a challenging week. I'm really hoping that the Fed can figure out something this Friday in their discussion with how to overcome this inflation. There was an announcement on the last inflation numbers that inflation was at 0. That couldn't be further from the truth. So it was very misleading. It was a political, I think, stunt to make everything look good, but it's not great. So I'm really hoping the Feds have a really good handle on what they can do. They don't have a lot of tools other than raising rates. And the more they raise, the more that can squeeze on our economy. A big, really interesting move was China actually lowered their Fed funds rate, or what's equivalent to our Fed funds rate, to help bolster their economy after their shutdowns, which kind of went counterintuitive to what we're trying to do on our side of the world. So that was an interesting move last week that nobody was really expecting. And with the higher European EU inflation numbers, it kind of made the market kind of scratch its head. A lot of people were looking really strongly at, hey, maybe we're on the rebound. The stock market had a pretty good run, but then last couple of days, the stock market got hit over the head with a hammer as well. So be very careful out there. Let's hope the Feds have a good angle on what to do here, other than just raising rates. Let's see what they can do. So Friday is going to be very important. But it's still better, even if rates are higher. Remember what I said, marry the home and date the rate. Let's hope the rates come down in the future, but if they don't, it's still better to buy now than wait. So I'll make sure everyone gets these examples. And thank you everyone for being on today. Any further questions?
Sean, I just had one more like on the regional basis, and I don't know that you can answer it, but do you think that this water shortage suddenly making the news cycle regularly now as a top item is going to have any impact at all for any one or any specific region in the Valley?
Believe it or not, I saw a really good presentation by our local, let's just say politicians that are in charge of like the water table. And Arizona is unique because we have aquifers that are in an emergency fund, an emergency like 100-year need. So we have like 100-year reserves of water, which is bizarre to think of. We actually have quite a bit. So I'm not too worried from after I heard that, I'm not too worried about it. We're always worried about water. I mean, that's always something to worry. I think there's certain areas of the valley that don't have the infrastructure to get it to them in a good fashion. So I think that's going to be more of a very hyper localized issue. Because remedying that situation quickly could be a problem. But for the most part in the metropolitan areas, I think it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But if there are areas that have wells that are drying up, that does happen, and they don't have ways of getting water to them, and they have to maybe haul water, there may be just some different things they have to do. But overall, I think we're okay. But that is an interesting question because I've heard that come up quite a bit. I mean, you see it on the news every day, right? Lake Mead drying up. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they could do to maybe slow that down, but it is very interesting to watch. That's for sure. Just pray for a lot of rain, which we've been getting lately. All right, guys. Well, don't forget about all of our tools we have to support you. I'm here for you always. All I ask is a shot at it, and I'm all up for competition. So if you do have preferred people, I would love to go up to bat against them. But always know that my team is here for you whenever, and we take our jobs very seriously. So thank you for everything you do on your side. And if you need anything, I'm just a phone call away.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Anytime, guys. Have a phenomenal week. And I'll stay on the call for just a little bit longer. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to stay on.
You should put a class together for doing that video for everybody.
A class together on doing the video?
Yeah.
On the why me, like why choose us video?
We could all have a big class doing our own.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good because we all need that, but it's hard to make ourselves like look good without us making us look like we're just, I don't know, our heads are full of whatever, you know. It's just tough. A lot of times third party, maybe that's a way of doing it, like just get a lot of video testimonials and say, don't take my word for it. Here's some video testimonials on why people have loved me. Maybe that's a better way of looking at it. That way we don't look like we're tooting our own horn. And it's a lot more authentic. All right, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I like that. Video testimonials.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
All right, so let's all work on that. Let's all put together some video testimonials from past customers, whoever it may be. I think that's a better approach. Okay, I'll work on that, Carla. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, guys. Have a phenomenal week.